Everybody, welcome back to the next part of my Creating a Great Tone series for our Line 6 Helix. And today I wanted to talk about a topic I haven't really spoken about yet, but have wanted to for a while, and that is using the Line 6 Helix as a MIDI controller. Now, a lot of folks might say, why would we ever need to use the Helix as a MIDI controller? And there's potentially a lot of reasons. If we're controlling external effects pedals, maybe we're controlling an amplifier that has MIDI switching capabilities, and the list goes on. So this is less about why we would need it and how we can use it if we do need it. And today I'm going to be using my REVV G20 amp, which I don't know if you can see set up over here. I have a second camera that's going to be showing the front of that when we have the need to see it. So I could have used some Strymon pedals I have. I could have used anything. Really, the principles are going to be the same in setting any MIDI capable device up to be controlled by the Helix. So this video is going to be all about setting up our Helix to MIDI control a device that's capable of receiving MIDI commands. All right, so let's go over to HEX Edit and a PDF manual here. And the reason I put this up, this is the REVV G20 manual. So the first thing I would suggest to you, when you're trying to set up MIDI commands for anything you're controlling, it's always a really good idea to have the manual or documentation of the device you are working with. Because what that's going to give you are some very important numbers you're going to need to control it in the way that you want. Now, I'm not going to be able to go in depth and discuss every possible MIDI type command or possibility on how to switch, but just to show you the principles of how this works. And I think once you understand the basics, you're going to be able to set anything else up very, very quickly and effortlessly. And I think a lot of folks get very afraid of MIDI and shy away from it, but once they get the basic understanding of it, it actually is not so difficult when trying to do very basic things with it. So first things first, number one, we have to make sure that the units that are connected, that we want to talk to each other, are going to be able to talk to each other. And what we need to do first is set something called the MIDI channel. There's two ways to do that on the Helix. The number one way would be to go into global settings, and under global settings we'll see a MIDI menu. And in there it'll have something called the MIDI bass channel, right? And we would want to set that to the same channel as the device that we are using. So I have my Helix set to channel 1. I am going to show you later on another way that we can alternately set the MIDI channel sort of per command rather than through the global settings, which could be an important point. So I've also set the REVV G20 on channel 1, so they should be talking to each other. I have a cable going from the MIDI out of the Helix to the MIDI in of the REVV G20. Very, very simple setup. Okay, but here's the thing. Here's how we control the REVV G20. There's something called CC commands, okay? And there's all sorts of different MIDI commands, and I'm not really doing this video to go through all of the different MIDI commands, but more just some simple, these CC commands, which are control change commands, okay? And they're going to give us specific numbers that the Helix has to send, in this case, to the REVV G20 to tell it to do something, okay? So how do we handle this in the Helix? Well, there's going to be two ways we can use this, and this is what's really interesting. We could set it up, much like most presets, in either Snapshot Mode, where we have certain commands sent out of the Helix to the other devices when switching snapshots. Or we could have it so that we just set up sort of a pedal board and assign a pedal or a particular switch, foot switch, a command that will do something on the device that we are trying to control. And I'll show you both today, all right? So let's start with the snapshot mode. So first of all, what I have here is I'm pretending that I'm set up in 4-cable method. You're not gonna hear any audio today. I'm not set up in any way, shape, or form to have these work together. But I set up this sort of mock preset where I have a reverb, a delay, and a distortion pedal. On snapshot 1, distortion and delay are turned off. Reverb is on. Snapshot 2, I have delay and reverb on, distortion off. And snapshot 3, I have distortion on, delay on, and reverb on. All right, so let's remember that. Now, not even that that's that important, just I did something to switch so that we had something switching, right? Now, I go up to my window menu in the HX Edit, and I hit Command Center. And what pops up is this window called Command Center where we can make assignments. Now, we see all sorts of things going on here. And as we click these, we have this switch is representing the expression pedal toe switch. This is even Variax. If we're using a Variax, we can send MIDI messages from the Variax. We have expression pedals 1, 2, and 3 if we have other expression pedals hooked up. It's really, really incredible what we can do with this. All of our different foot switches 1 through 12, and then we even have something called instant commands. Now the instant commands are where we're going to be looking for when we're dealing with snapshots. So here we are at the REVV G20, and this particular section of the manual is telling me the values that the REVV G20 wants to see to take certain actions, okay? For instance, if we want to select channel 1 on the REVV G20, we need to send it a CC number of 16. CC is control change number, okay? If we want to select channel 2 with low aggression, we would send it a CC number of 18, channel 2 medium aggression, CC of 19, and so on and so forth. Now, the interesting thing about this is it says up here, the following commands and their CC numbers need only be sent an on command, which is a value of 0 to 63. And you'll see why these numbers are important in a second when we start assigning them, okay? So we can't turn these on or off. We're just going to select it, and then we can select another one and another one. There are different commands down here though, and this says the following commands control functions that can be turned on and off. These functions require an off, which is going to be a value of 0 to 63, or an on, which is a value of 64 to 127, to be sent with the CC number to either turn them on or off. So what it means is depending on what value we send it, we're going to be turning the reverb on and off. Maybe we're going to be switching between 4 watt and 20 watt. We're going to turn the wide control on and off, or the pre-post control on and off. And I'll give you examples of all of these, okay? So these functions up here we'll start with, we only need to send it a value of 0 to 63 to select it. Now, if you look at the front of the Rev right now, the blue light is on. That's telling me that channel 1 is selected. And none of these other LEDs over here, any of the LEDs under here that I hope you can see, are active, okay? So let's do this. Let's say that for the first instant command on Snapshot 1, which I have selected, I want that, since it's just reverb, I want it to select channel 1. Okay, so I come up here and I tell Command Center that when I have instant command 1 set, I want it to send a Midi CC message. So I'm going to set the Midi channel to 1 here. Now, if you notice, if our Helix base global Midi channel is already set to 1, we don't really need to change this. But I'm going to change it to 1 just to be sure that this command is only going where it has to go. Now you might say, well, why would we ever need this? Well, let's say we weren't just controlling the REVV G20. Let's say we were also controlling some other Midi capable effects. All of those effects would have to be on different channels to receive different messages, correct? So Midi channel 1 might be the Rev, Midi channel 2 might be a Strymon pedal, Midi channel 3 might be an Eventide pedal, and so on and so forth. So the Helix will be able to talk to each of those devices separately because they're on their own channel, and one channel won't interfere with another, if that makes sense. So I set this to Midi channel 1. Now I want this Snapshot 1 to always trigger channel 1 on my REVV G20. So I need a CC number of 16. So there you go, I've set it. Now, the value, I can leave at 0 because it's telling me it only has to have 0 to 63. I could set this all the way up to 63, anywhere in between 0 and 63. Now, if I go to 64, it's not going to work anymore. So I'll just leave that at 0. It's as simple as that. Now, when I select Snapshot 1, and I'll show you this in a second, the clean channel on the REVV G20 will be selected. All right, let's switch to Snapshot 2. And let's say that with Snapshot 2, I want to have the channel 2 with high aggression. So that's going to be a CC number of 20. So I go over here, Midi channel 1 again. I choose 20 as my CC number, leave my value at 0 again, and I'm good. Now I come over to Snapshot 3. Let's say I want to go to channel 2 with low aggression. All right, that's a Midi channel of 1, CC number of 18, and a value of 0. Now, what should happen is when I go to my snapshots, there's 1, 2, 3, and you'll notice I go back to Snapshot 1, the clean channel is engaged right here on the REVV G20. I go to 2, I get high aggression on channel 2, and then I go back to low aggression on channel 2 with Snapshot 3. So this is working exactly as I want. Helix is now controlling my REVV G20. Thing of beauty. Well, let's say we didn't want to use it so much as snapshots to control it, but I have that set up, it'll work. What if I wanted to actually just assign my foot switches to these commands? Well, I could do something, and watch how quickly I can do this. I can come down here and say, okay, let's take foot switch 7, which is my sort of bottom left foot switch, and they're laid out just as they are on the Helix, and I'm going to assign that a Midi CC number of 16 because MIDI channel 1, CC number of 16. I'm even going to name this because I can label my foot switches. So I'm going to say, you know, channel 1. Enter. Okay, so now my little scribble strip on my Helix shows that that's going to be channel 1. I could call it Rev channel 1. I could call it anything I would like to. I'm just going to go with channel 1. I go to my next foot switch and I say I want that to be a CC number of 18 because I'm going to have that as my channel 2 with low aggression. Fair enough. I go to my next foot switch. I choose a CC number again. Oops, sorry, onto 1. I'm going to go to 19 and I'm going to call this channel 2 medium. And then my next foot switch, CC number, MIDI channel 1, and I'm going to choose CC number of 20 and I'm going to call this channel 2 high. All right, so now I should have the ability to go between these channels and aggression levels, and you'll see it's working beautifully. I'm on channel 1, blue. I switch now over to channel 2 with low aggression, channel 2 with medium aggression. You see the aggression button turned blue, and now it turned red because I'm on high aggression, and I can switch between those. And I can switch back to my snapshots and still control all the things that I set up before. So I can have two ways of doing this to effortlessly control my REVV G20 or any other device. So neat. Okay, but now what about these ones that say we can toggle them on and off? Let's say I wanted to control a reverb. I'll come up to this switch and I'll say now, before I was sending a MIDI CC, because there's no toggling involved, it was just telling it turn this on, turn this on, turn this on. Now I want to toggle something on and off. So if we go down here, we go CC toggle. I'm going to use that now. MIDI channels of 1 still. Now I'm going to say this one's going to be reverb. So we'll label this reverb. Now this is not one that you're going to see on the front of the amp. There's no notification telling us when the reverb's on and off, but I will just show you how to set it. That has a CC number of 26. So I set CC number of 26. The dim value, meaning when it's off, we'll keep it value 0. Lit value is 127, which would be an on message. So we could set this one anywhere between 0 and 63, and this one anywhere between 64 and 27. So this will turn it off, this will turn it on. All right, so now that is set up for reverb. Like I said, you're not going to see anything coming on and off, but let's do a toggle on the next switch that we will see come on and off. Let's say I wanted to set the wide switch to come on and off, okay? So again, I come in with a CC toggle, MIDI channel 1, CC number of 28 for this one. All right, dim value of 0, meaning off, lit value of 127, meaning on, and I will just put rev wide down here. If I knew how to type, that would help. There we go. So now that switch, what you should see is underneath here, I hope it shows up on camera, right beside my finger. When I hit that now, the wide switch comes on and off. And I could just keep going with this until I run out of places to do it. CC toggle. Let's say we want to be able to switch between 4 watts and 20 watts. Simple enough. Again, MIDI channel 1, number 27, 0 off, 127 on, and I can call this 4 watt slash 20 watts. And now you'll see down here, the 4 watt, 20 watt is toggling on and off. And I still have all my other functions working perfectly fine. Reverb, wide, 4 watt, 20 watt. I can switch back over to snapshots and control these as such as well. And it's really that simple, folks. The command center is a really wonderful and possibly underused side of the Helix that a lot of folks just haven't explored because maybe they haven't realized it was there or they haven't had a need for it. But you know, if we have anything that is MIDI capable and of being controlled, we can amalgamate it into our Helix system and have a really almost unlimited range of control. I've just scratched the surface on this. Command Center is even more powerful than this for many other features, which you can read about in the manual. But I just wanted to touch base a little bit on using Helix as a basic MIDI controller, because I think a lot of folks maybe don't realize it's there, and once they do, it really does wonders for our rig. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope I was clear on the explanations to it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will be back soon with some more content. Please like the video, share it with anybody who you think would get use out of it. Subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. I'll be back soon with some more, and thanks again so much for tuning in. Ciao for now.